Okay, so those that are maybe watching this via YouTube, please be sure that, and I haven't asked you to do this before, but in the comments after you watch the YouTube video, if you'll put your name, and you could use your first name, you don't have to use a full name, your city you live in, and the program you work for in the comments, that would be great. I'm also going to include the link to the evaluation in the comments after that too. So if you watch the YouTube video, click on that link and do the evaluation too. That would be really helpful for us to capture who's watching and if it's helpful or not. So, and Penny and Tasha, I will actually get you will be captured today because you register for this. And the information I need from you is in that registration. So that's great. Also, just so you know, for both Penny and Tasha and those of you who may be listening in later, we are going to start our next training series January 12th. Teddy will be leading that, and it's going to be cultural diversity awareness with family engagement. I think how much I love the family engagement piece of it. This is just going to be the next step and build upon what we've kind of already started. And I'm really excited for it. So I hope everybody has January 12th blocked off. Yay. January 20th and January 6th. If not, do not worry. I will do my best to record it and have it posted on YouTube. So that being said, I just want to know, Penny and Tasha, have either of you had the chance to go back and watch the 2 YouTubes to build up to this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
Second All one right. This morning.
I'm going to turn it over to Teddy then.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So let me share my screen. And we are a very intimate group here. And so I really want you to, I want to encourage you guys to, hold on just a minute. It's not what I want. I just want to start with a couple, just a couple slides to review before we get started. And so the first one that I want to, just as a review, we talked about, oh my gosh, what is going on there? Hold on just a minute. Okay. We talked about how in order to have full family engagement, like true mutual family engagement, you have to have these core beliefs. And the first one was just that all families have dreams for their children. And we talked about how, you know, those dreams may get derailed. They may forget they have those dreams. They may make choices that cause those dreams not to happen, you know, as well. But they all start out with dreams for their, you know, for their children. So that's the first thing that we have to keep in mind. Then the second one is that all parents have the capacity. Doesn't mean that they do support their child, but they have the capacity. And it really is up to us in our programs through our outreach and working like that with families that we build that capacity, we fill that capacity in our families so that we're doing that dual capacity building where you are supporting the children that you currently have this year in your programs, and then you're building that capacity in your families as well. So you're doing dual capacity building, which really and truly I think is exciting. It's daunting, but it's exciting. So then the third core belief is that you should be equal partners. And I'm pretty sure, because it usually comes up in every training when I get to this number 3, that really probably a better word would be mutual. Not, you know, don't think of it 50-50. Obviously, we don't want parents coming in and, you know, telling us exactly what the curriculum is that they want us to teach and things like that. But I think the overriding understanding or perception that we need to have is we don't really have the right to tell our families what they should be doing at home in the evenings on any given night. And so if we want them reading to their children every, you know, as much as possible, because we know that is critically important to young children, then we need to not assume that we know which nights they have available. And so as we talked about in that last time, saying, you know, what nights reading is important. What nights are good for you, or how many nights do you think you could read to your child? Recognizing that we don't know their schedules and we don't know what all is going on with their lives. And to me, this is probably the most, this and four, most important core belief, because I think historically, as educators, we've assumed that all families have time to do all the wonderful things that we send out and want them doing, when we send them out and when we want them doing that. And then, of course, sorry. And then the fourth one is that the responsibility of building that partnership does fall on us. And I want to reiterate, it doesn't mean that we're doing everything for them. But as we've talked about in the previous sessions, if I grew up in a family where my parents were not involved in my education, where do I get the message? Where do I learn that it is important to be engaged in your child's learning? If I come from a culture where it is a sign of disrespect to enter into, or be engaged, or, reach out to the teacher and those things, where do I learn the American system? And so it really is up to us to send that message that we want the parents involved. We want them communicating with us. And then once you have accepted those four core beliefs, then there are these building blocks. And so we spent some time talking about those building blocks, about that all of your learning engagement times need to be built upon relationships. And I think that as a rule, I think the majority of people that I work with can check that off. I think that you guys do a great job building that relationship with your families. Every time you're meeting with them, they need to be interactive. Even if it is a federal meeting, even if it is just an information sharing meeting, it somehow has to be interactive, has to be collaborative, where they are helping with the planning. And I know we talked at the last session about developing a parent task force or a parent action committee, where they actually are helping plan the things that are going on at this school. And developmental, one of the things that did come up on the last one that we didn't record was that we had talked previously about those beginning of the year meetings. How some parents, it's their second or third time to come and hear, the stuff, the beginning of the year stuff. And so a lot of parents don't come because they're like, been there, done that, heard that. I shared the story that my husband was one of those people. He was like, why am I going again to meet the teacher? I've met them all. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. So thinking about making it developmental, where maybe you still have an initial meeting for those new parents that are in your program, but then have another session where you can do a deeper dive for those parents that are repeat parents with in your program. And then the one that I think is the hardest for some reason to incorporate is always linking everything we are asking our parents to, linking it to learning. And as we said, every time they leave, whether they leave a read aloud day, grandparents day, meet the teacher, open house, parent teacher conference, whatever it is that you've asked them to come and participate in, they need to leave smarter than when they walked in that door, because they don't have time to waste their time, just like we don't have time to waste our time either. So that's just kind of in a nutshell, a quick little review. Any questions about that before I give us our first thing to discuss? Any questions or comments? Okay. So the other thing that that we talked about, and we spent a little bit of time talking about at the beginning, also is you can have the best planned family engagement. You can have a parent task force. You can have everything in place and parents still don't come because of the barriers that are in the way. And so I want you to think for just a minute. In the very first session, I think we talked about all those different barriers. So I want you to, one of the things that I wanted them to do was reflect on what are some of the barriers that you think are specific to your program, and can you brainstorm or think about a way to maybe get around that barrier, or have you gotten around some of those barriers? Okay, time and COVID keeping you guys apart. Absolutely, absolutely, Penny. What are some other barriers that you think are keeping parents from coming or just engaging, whether it's at home or because that's another thing, is we need to let parents know that they don't have to physically come to the building to be engaged. And we need to start acknowledging that they are engaged when they're just getting their child to school every day on time. And it can be something as simple as that. Distracted by other things, and this is not a priority. And I want to speak to that for just a second, because I think that's true. And I think the reason they think that whatever it is, whatever wonderful thing you're providing or you're asking them to do is not a priority is because we make things that we see value in a priority. And so if I'm being asked to come to something and I already know what it's going to be, or I don't speak the language, and so that's just too big of a beat down for me to try to figure out, the body language and get a couple keywords to figure out what you're trying to tell me. Or if I don't have a babysitter and I have to wag my children up there, I'm not going to make it a priority. And so I know y'all are going to say, oh my gosh, but everything you are offering, everything you're asking your parents to participate in, when they get that invitation or they get that note or that memo, they need to think, oh my gosh, I wouldn't dare miss this. And so typically when it's not a priority, it's because we, and I don't mean, Penny, you specifically, but as a business, as a profession, we have really not done a good job explaining to the parents why attending whatever it is important to them. So I want to talk just really, really, really quickly about some of those barriers, because I think while COVID has caused a lot of issues for a lot of us, I think it also opened the door for a lot of things as well. In our in Ready Rosie, we have those Give Me 10s, those 10-minute workshops under the resources. And I cannot tell you how many programs still wanted to do family workshops, but they couldn't do it at drop off or pick up because they weren't physically coming to the centers. They started offering those via Zoom. And they actually were having better attendance on Zoom than they were when they were asking the families to come. Because number one, childcare is no longer an issue for me. Transportation is no longer an issue for me. And so, Shauna, do you remember there were a couple of our sites were doing those Give Me 10s via Zoom. Do you remember off the top of your head who they were?
I know Skylar was doing them quite often. I know Lexington didn't necessarily do the full Give Me 10. They took pieces out of it and they incorporated it in some of the family engagement things they were trying to do virtually last year. So I know those two programs for sure were.
So I think that was a great thing that we used during COVID, because it forced us to kind of think outside the box of how we could still interact with our families. But here's the thing, all of our parents are now used to doing things virtually. So what a wonderful way to knock down one of those barriers is to, if you're having something at the center, send out a Zoom link as well. so that they can log on if they cannot come physically to the program. Last year I was doing some family workshops and it was all virtually. And I had probably 5 or 6 moms who were logging, they were nurses or nurses' aides or whatever, working in a hospital. And they were in little cubbies in the hospital, logging onto the family workshop at their lunchtime. Now, if that program had not offered a Zoom link, they wouldn't have been able to come in and participate. And so I really encourage you, as we hopefully get back to some sense of normal and we're doing more things at our centers, that you still provide a Zoom opportunity. If it's a thing where it's like a family event, and that might be kind of weird, if they're just, kind of like, observing from a perch and people are going around to centers and doing the activities and things like that or something, think about recording it and making it available. I mean, Penny, were you the one that said you watched the first one or you were on the first one and watched the second one or whatever? And so you guys have even taken advantage of not being able to participate at the moment, but going back and watching it. So those are some things about trying to think about how to break those barriers down. So I really challenge you to think about your center and think, what are the barriers that are specific to us? And then call in some of those favorite families, some of those families who are engaged regularly, and think, okay, this is why parents aren't coming. What can we do to break down that barrier? So think about that. So then the other thing that we thought about was, or we talked about was, with these building blocks and with these building blocks, get one of your family engagement times or touch points or whatever you want to call them, get one in your mind. And there are only 2 of us, and so I'm not going to put you in breakout rooms because we're basically our own little breakout room. But think about get something that you're doing currently with your families in mind. And I want you to think, is it built on relationships? My guess is probably yes. Is it interactive? Is it collaborative, meaning we planned it together or we took input from the families? Is it developmental, for showing the different stages or different places where our families might be? And is it linked to learning? And then we'll share, and Penny, you can just type real fast.
So I can think of one that I did for like a Thanksgiving social. I had the local firefighter come, and we didn't get like a small town, so we didn't have like fire truck and all that, like I really would have loved to.
Yeah.
But she came and talked about fire safety. And then I kind of gave them handouts as well as like, getting them to think about fire plans. What are you going to do if fire? Do you have a plan? Where's your family to meet? Do your older children know what to do? Even the younger children, like playing with them. Because I know whenever I moved here, we moved into a new house and we kind of had fun with it. And I said, okay, this is what we do. What do you guys do in a fire? And me and my kids played it out. And so I encouraged them to do the same thing with their children. And then for our little activity, we did little turkeys. And so developmentally for each child, it might have looked different, whether they were actually peeling and sticking the little eyeballs or their parents helping them, or they used the glue, doing the feathers and stuff. So there was like an activity to go along with it. So for the collaborative piece, asked the parents like what time would work best for them. And I had a really good turnout.
Good.
Provided dinner also. So tried to keep our window and everything went really well.
Good. Penny, what about all right. So Penny said the one that is a favorite is that I send out a book for each family, one that we have read several times here, and that includes a song. We practice the song and record it and put it on our chat group so parents know the tune and hand gestures. The kids are always excited to show the parents. I haven't done any in person. All right, good. So what I'm gonna challenge you guys on, because that's kind of our role here, is I want you to think about that linked to learning as the why. The why. Like, why does a parent need to know this? Okay. And so, because I think what happens in the profession is we know why all these things are important, and we assume that our families know why all these things are important. And so, for example, Tasha, with that, I mean, I think that's great. I was sitting here thinking, oh, when my children were growing up, we really never talked about how to get out of our house if there was a fire, I think that's important. They always did that at school, but as a parent, I never did it. And so I think that, that's a step in having them think through their plan. But why is that important? And that's the piece that we've really got to think about is, why do I even care? Why is it important for me to have a plan on how to get out of my house if there's a fire? Now, probably we can assume that they're going to understand why that is. But if we don't start thinking about every activity that we do through that lens of why should I care, or why is this important, then it just doesn't become second nature to us. Does that make sense? So, for example, I was trying to look back at my notes at some of the things that they shared last time. Hold on just a second. So one of the girls last time shared they have a family day, and they invite the family up. The older siblings come, and all of that, and so it's just a great family day. And so we were talking about the whole family is entering into the activities, and they're doing the activities together. And while that's great, and that's what we want, when you're linking it to learning, though, is why is it important that they were experiencing these activities as a family? Okay, and so the different activities, it was like this is supporting reading, and this is supporting math, and this is supporting that. But the way it was set up was to be the whole family being involved. And so why is it important? Why did you want my whole family to come and participate? Why was it important for third grade brother to come, or whatever? Anybody have a guess? Why is that important, or why would that be important to have it be a family activity?
Just engaging the entire family as a unit, having everyone work together, share their experiences and excitement in the different activities. Exactly.
And when we are doing things as a family, which, in today's day, we're moving so far away from that. I mean, even if you go out to dinner now, everybody's on their phone. In fact, before the pandemic, my husband and I went out to dinner, and as we were walking past this table of 4, mom and dad and 2 children, they all had their, heads down. So I looked at my husband and I said, oh my gosh, that whole little family is just praying right there before dinner. I just, wow, good for them. And he, we got past him and he said, no, they're not, Teddy. They were all on their phones. They just had them down in their lap. So it looked like they were all having this family prayer, but they were all individually on their phones. And so one reason to do family activities like that is we know that doing things as a family build those protective factors in families. And the research shows that families that are healthy and have those protective factors, those children are less likely to, join gangs or things like that. They know their family is a safe place. They know that their family is there if they get into trouble or if they have issues or if they need to discuss something. And so in addition to whatever academics they might be learning, they also are building building and increasing those protective factors that are so important to families. You are probably addressing a lot of those parent-family outcomes that so many of you all may be focusing on one or more on a month or in a year or whatever. And so while it's important to say why, you want them to come for the academic activities that they're doing, but really emphasize that it's part of what is important as well is building and strengthening the family unit because, and you can share the little research about, because we know that children who are in, healthy families are more likely to graduate on time, have less discipline issues, blah, blah, blah. They know they can go to their family when there's an issue or they're, because it's a healthy, strong family, so that we are supporting that learning of the family as well. So does that make sense? And Penny,
just want to add
well,
a little bit on there too, Teddy, is that building that family engagement piece in there and kind of the partnership of families being part of your programming. Because I'm kind of going to point out Penny because I know she's a family child care home provider, which sometimes you don't necessarily think of family engagement being a piece that's part of family child care homes. And I do believe that we're starting on the movement of we need to move in that direction more and more. You being an early child professional, no matter what setting you're in, you're building that foundation of trust between where their child is during the day while they're at work or whatever they're doing, so that when that child then either goes to preschool or school, that expectation of the family to engage with whoever is also having experiences with their child and to trust and feel comfortable and being a part of that process. You guys are really building that foundation. Tasha, as you a home provider or a home visitor, also building that foundation that we want you to be part of your child's learning experience at all levels, whether it's childcare, preschool, kindergarten, first, junior, and high school. And this is the foundation. So you guys are doing that with trying to implement and in building partnerships with parents on the family or caregivers on the family engagement piece.
I'm glad you brought that up, Shauna, because I think that, like I said earlier, family engagement is more than just getting them to come to the school for something. And so I think one of the most important jobs that you guys have is for so many of the families, you are their first formal school experience or, experience with somebody else taking care of their child. And so while it's daunting, it's also exciting because you can say, this is what family engagement looks this year with me. But next year, when your child goes to, blah, 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 or transitions into here, this is what family engagement might look like. Because one of the things that we talked about in the first session is how their role evolves as their child grows. And so while Penny, you may be working with a family and, getting them to understand that they're monitoring their child is, making sure that the things are in the plugs and making sure that the handles on the pots are turned away from the stove or not, picking up a hot pot while you're also holding, a baby or something. But that as their child grows, that monitoring, that's what it looks like this year. But when their child goes to kindergarten, that monitoring is going to be, do they have their backpack? Do they have their folder? Do they have, whatever? When they go to fifth grade, what is that monitoring going to look like? And as their child even gets older, that monitoring is going to be more than just, have they done their homework or, that kind of stuff, but are they saying they are who they said they were going to be with? It's going to be monitoring their social media. It's going to be monitoring their friends. It's going to be monitoring. And so you guys, like I said, I think it's an exciting yet daunting role, but you get to explain all of that to your families so that you are setting them off on the right foot to be engaged for their whole child's career, educational career until they graduate. So Penny said, siblings are always excited to be here and see where their younger siblings get to play every day. They only see it at pickup and don't get to play here normally. Absolutely. And I think, again, for those siblings, part of that linking it to learning is making sure that that sibling knows why it's important, because when they are coming and interacting in what, little brother or little sister is doing, that you are allowing them to build that relationship between them. And so go ahead and, put that out. If they're going through stations or whatever, one of the girls last time, I think it was, said, you could even put little cards out about, what it is that they are learning or, linking it to learning. And so you could even send out, give them a card as they're leaving, give the brother or sister a card as they're leaving that says, thank you for coming. By coming, you helped build and strengthen your relationship with your brother and, your sibling or whatever, so that they know they weren't just coming because it was cool to see what their little brother or sister does, but actually that is part of that building that healthy, protective family. And so that's what we're also talking about when we're talking about linking it to learning. And Penny said, one of my mothers is Ukrainian and she calls my childcare kindergarten because kinder means child. Exactly. I think that's cool. And, I think, does she speak English well? Does she have a good command of a sort? Okay. So I think another part of family engagement is using, if you haven't already, using some of your parents who do have a good command of the English language, partnering one of them with her, getting them together so that she feels comfortable. And she starts building that relationship with other parents where if she has a question or doesn't understand something, she can go to them as well. And then capitalizing on the strengths that she brings to the table. And we'll go into a lot more on that in our next 3 sessions of cultural diversity. But I think that's great. I think that's cool. Anything you guys want to add to the examples that you shared or that we talked about? So I want you to, one last thing is I want you to think about developmental also in terms of your families. And so when we're talking about family engagement, we're talking about the family, the parent. And so developmental doesn't necessarily mean it's developmentally leveled or developmental for the child, but is it developmental for the families in where they may be on their engagement level? Okay. So I want you to, okay, hold on just a minute. Penny said, we have had to work a lot on interpreting. I have invited her to a parent group and she enjoyed learning more about the language. Good. And I think that, I don't know if, if there are other people there that speak Ukrainian, or is that the language? No, because sometimes, you can get an interpreter to come to help her with that. But I think just the fact that you are inviting her to the group, I think anytime that you can include icons or little pictures to help explain it, is extremely helpful too, because that sends the message that you value her and you want to make sure that she understands. So, so I want you to think of something that you do. Oh, the Google Translate thing.
One of my parents that I just enrolled 2 days ago we did our first visit 2 days ago, and she was trying to fill out one of these forms that I had for her, and she's like, oh, what am I trying to say? And she speaks Spanish, so she was using that Google Assist a lot.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
yeah.
I loved her input that she put on the paper, but she was having a hard time with it, so she used that, and she was able to communicate what she needed and wanted very well.
Yeah, good.
Some of the ideas that came up at the last group that we were at is a group talked about using YouTube. So
Yes.
Tasha, if you had another parent who spoke Spanish and needed to just go through the directions of filling out that form, but the parent didn't necessarily have time to be able to sit next to that person, if they would allow you to video the instructions in Spanish, and then that person who does speak Spanish could watch the video and fill out the form, and that way you're connecting parent to parent. There was really good discussion about that part of it, and then using the pictures to explain, because a lot of times people, not only do they not speak the same language, but just some people just their ability to read, and to, instead of sending things home in paper, they were having, one of the ideas was to have a parent once a week be the parent that comes in and reads the newsletter, and it's on YouTube or Facebook Live or something, and then sent out so other parents then could listen and not necessarily have to read it. So, I mean, it was such a unique idea that I think, technology, we do have some things that we probably didn't think of we could use before. And that, I think, to me, seems like it could be something that almost anybody could do.
Exactly. So thank you, Shauna, because thank you for remembering that and bringing that up. So I want you to think about those: built on relationships, interactive, collaborative, developmental, and always linked to learning. Which one or ones do you think is the hardest for you to, I'm trying to get out of this. Hold on just a second, because I want to go to the Ready Rosie platform too. But while I'm navigating away from that, which ones of those do you think is the hardest for you to do, or to do consistently? The collaborative. Okay. And so again, it doesn't mean that every single thing you do, you're going to get your parents' input on. But some of the major things, like the days that you want to meet, or the times that you want to meet, we should be asking the families. And so I honestly think that sending out a survey is one of the easiest ways to get that information. Because if you're doing every meeting kind of thing, the same day of the month and the same time every single time, it doesn't matter how great it is. It doesn't matter how big a priority I think it is. It doesn't matter how much I want to come. I'm not going to be able to come because at the same time, and I'm still at work, or I haven't picked my children up or whatever. And Penny said that you don't always get responses. And that's a thing. And I think one of the barriers of parents is that either their history growing up with schools, or their previous experience, or their friends' experience. But I think we have a big number of parents who think they really don't want my input. They've already decided, and they're just kind of doing this as a nice thing to look like they really want my input. And so I think that when you have parents that have that kind of attitude, you really have to go work on the relationship. And so, you probably see your parents daily. And so if you've sent out a survey, then if you have some that you haven't gotten a response from, then I think when they're picking their child up or dropping their child off, you could say, hey, I'm trying to find the best time for, you know, whatever. Is there a day of the week that's better for you? Or is there a time that's better for you? And, you know, and they may say, nope, there's not. And you just say, okay, thanks, you know, and then record it or give them a Zoom link or whatever. But I do think that sending out a survey, there's a group in Louisiana that was working so hard trying to boost their family engagement, and they were providing a meal. And they said, you know, Teddy, we always heard that if we fed them, they would come. And she said, you know, we fed them and they still didn't come. And so I said, well, what were you feeding? And she said, well, you know, we were making sandwiches. And I thought, I'm not sure I'd come back out after a day of work for a sandwich. I can get a sandwich at home. And so we started brainstorming, and I said, what if you sent out a survey that said, what, you know, we want to provide a light meal, a snack dinner or whatever of these things, because obviously there are certain things that you can do that are, you know, cost efficient. In Texas, it's like nachos or pizza or spaghetti or hot dogs. But of these things, which, you know, rank these in your preference, or which of these would you like to see served at, you know, for dinner or whatever. So they did. And she said, they even put in other, a line for other. And she said they put, I don't remember if it was gumbo or jambalaya, that a lot of people, the majority of people wrote in. And she said, and at first we thought, oh my gosh, there's no way we can make, you know, jambalaya or whatever for the parents that come to the, you know, come to the meeting. But she said, when they started costing it out, she said that really when they figured out how much they spent on lettuce and tomato and condiments and bread and lunch meat and all of that, that they could actually make the jambalaya for about the same or a little bit less than what they were spending on the sandwiches. And the thing that that survey does like that is, number one, it gives them a say. It gives them some buy-in, and it sends the message, we want to know what you think. But it also makes them attend more willing to attend, because a lot of times they'll think, well, I said I'd come if they served such and such, so I probably better go. So even when you're offering a meal, think about getting, you know, doing a survey or taking a poll. Penny, one thing that helps with getting responses as well is when you have other parents call each other. So every group, every classroom, every center has parents who are rock stars, and, you know, they're engaged and they're your go-to families and all of that. And I think that we underuse them. And so, you know, if you're trying to, you know, poll the parents and find out what day or time, get one of your parents and say, you know, hey, will you call this list of parents and find out when is a good day, when is a good time? And a lot of times they will respond to the parent where they might not respond to you. It also sends the message, we value our parents and they are part of the planning of what we're doing. So any questions about that little piece? Do you need to get permission to give out their number? Some parents don't want others to have that. You know, I don't know. That's probably a center by center thing. A lot of times, you know, parents will have each other's phone numbers. Or maybe if you know, if parents don't want to give out their phone number, if there's a parent that you just say, hey, can you hang out at pickup for a while and ask our parents when would be a good day or time? You know, I'm not sure but that is something that you would have to, you know, double check before you just gave out the list of phone numbers. So, Shauna, do you know any about that more so?
I would just say as a best practice to probably ask if it's okay to share numbers, or you know, if you had something that said we would like parents to connect with parents if you're interested and you're okay with sharing information, check this box or something like that. It is just probably you know, like you said, for
Safe.
privacy reasons, you know,
Yeah.
want to make sure that parents are okay with their, and what exactly the number would be shared for. Not that everybody would adhere to that, but yeah, I think mostly you just want to get some permission one way or another.
Exactly. And most parents, don't mind if they know that it's, to call and remind you. And because that's one of the things that we know from research too, that parent to parent networking is more important, or is not more important, works better. I can't think of the word, works better, more powerful than teacher to parent. And so instead of you sending out a flyer and a reminder and slapping a label on that, such and such is tonight at 7 p.m., that it's actually more powerful for a parent to call another parent and say, hey, don't forget tonight is the such and such meeting, or tonight is the family night, or tonight is, whatever. And then when you have that core group of parents, if you have an action or a parent network, then you can even empower them if they want to say, I can swing by and pick you up if I need to, if transportation is an issue. And the powerful thing to me for that is then they are building a parent-to-parent network, not only to support you in your program, but also they're building relationships with other parents. And so they then have a safety network that they can rely on and go to with questions and problems and things like that, instead of always coming up to the school. So one of the things that I want you to think about, and let me play this one little video. How if I could spell correctly here. We're going to watch Tell Me About It, and then I'll ask you my question. We're going to watch two, and then I'm going to ask you my question. So this is Tell Me About It. Am I still sharing my screen? Okay.
Roy, so while you finish your snack, we're gonna play a little game. I'm gonna interview you like on TV, okay? All right, what's your name?
Royce,
Hi, Royce. How old are you?
3,
3. Are you a big boy?
yes,
Yes. Well, as a big 3-year-old, what toys do you like to play with?
the Legos,
The Legos? You like to play with Legos?
yeah,
Who do you play Legos with?
Jack,
Let me see. Who do you play with?
yeah,
What is your favorite color?
blue,
Blue.
and white, and yellow, and blue, and green.
That's a lot of colors. Who's your favorite person? Yes. Okay.
So the second one that I want us to watch real quickly, and then I will ask my question. Let me go. Conversation starters. All right. Y'all are thinking, what in the world does this have to do with family engagement?
So first question, what is the biggest number you can think of?
1,000.
1,000, Macy?
Infinity beyond.
Infinity
You
beyond?
mean infinity?
Infinity.
Infinity? Okay,
Okay, good, Nick.
let's see. If you could be a character out of any book, which character would you be?
Hulk smash.
Hulk Smash?
Why would you be Hulk?
Because he's strong.
He's strong. Got another one, Daddy?
I got one more. If you could have any superpower, what superpower would you have?
Invisible.
Invisibility, Macy.
Let me think. Flying.
Flying, Royce?
Every power.
Every power.
Power. You gotta
One.
pick one.
No. Okay, I'll do
Flying is cool.
healing.
Healing heart.
Like
Okay.
like you could heal someone?
Mhm.
That I can control the seasons.
Control the seasons.
What
yeah.
season would you make it?
I'll make a winter.
I don't know how you're my daughter. Oh, I thought you'd say
summer. We get out longer for summer.
I was thinking
So-
of letting it snow.
Oh,
storm.
so snowstorm, but still summer's longer than a snowstorm, right? I think so. Awesome. Awesome. You got another one, Dad? Let's do one more.
Let's go back to a number question. The smallest number you can think of.
0.
All right, so those are two, you know, kind of the same family. It was my favorite family to film with, but can you think of any time when you were having the families come that you could show one or the other? And what would be the purpose of showing either one of those? Or how could you even adapt it?
I like it as far as like being a family around the table and having conversation around a mealtime. And then I also like how they ask more questions, like
Mhm.
why she wanted it to be winter, not just because the cold snow, because
Yeah.
we went to school.
Yeah, exactly. And what I love about that is that they, you know, the mom was completely thinking of it in a different way. And she was almost kind of trying to project her reasoning onto, her daughter. And so they're interacting, they're not just eating or watching TV. But either one of these could be done so easily with your parents, not only just to show those skills. And so even if you're having a boring federal meeting or just a meeting that you're like, I don't know how to link this to learning, you could start that with one of these types of videos. And so then you can get on to your meeting. But you also could watch this to support, here's your links to learning, listening and speaking. So they're supporting listening and speaking, self-awareness, and relationship skills. So right there is your link to learning. So use that learning outcomes when you're trying to figure out how you're linking it to learning for the families. But also you could then choose questions. If you're doing it at the beginning of the year, you could do the tell me about it if you just wanted them to turn and tell, another parent right next to them, or if they're sitting around tables or you wanted to put them in small groups, you could do the conversation starter. But you could say, instead of, what's the largest number you could think of? I mean, it could be just fun, open-ended questions like that, but you could also say, what is something that you really wish the school would offer? And so you're watching a fun activity, but instead of just opening it to a group of parents and saying, so what would you like, what would you like the center to offer this year? And then there's crickets. Show something like this, have them be in small groups, and then say, okay, now we're going to do conversation starters, and you could even say, your first question is, what's your favorite season? Zip around and everybody shares that. Okay, now your question is, what is something you really wish the school would offer this year? And so use the videos to help enhance your family engagement. Yes, and I do think that we need to be sharing videos that model that open-ended questions with children so that they are just discussing, because I can tell you from experience that when they get into kindergarten and first grade and they give you an answer and you say, well, tell me why you think that, they immediately think they're wrong and they start backpedaling. And as kindergarten and first grade teachers, and even on higher, we spend a lot of our time saying, no, you're right. I just want to know what your thinking was. And so I think getting parents to understand, to ask open-ended questions, and then even with questions that, kind of have, a fairly right or wrong answer, to say, well, so tell me what your thinking was, so that children then go into those grades where they're really having to do critical thinking and answering. They're used to being questioned or challenged, or, whatever word you want to use. So, have you guys, last question, have you guys come across a video through the Ready Rosie library that you think, or that you have used at a parent meeting or something like that?
I am honestly just getting started with it, so I haven't used any of these.
Well, what have you been doing? What have you been
No,
doing? Well, now you have some things to think about. Penny, have you used any? Oh, well, you don't have parent meetings, right? Okay, but you've been sharing them with your families, yeah, yeah. But it might be kind of fun to try to do like a little Zoom parent meeting or something, and gather them together, maybe. So, while before I turn it over to Shauna, I do want to call y'all's attention. Penny, you've probably already found them, but Tasha, just so you know, the research and answer videos are also great videos that you can share at the beginning of a family engagement time, where you're linking it to learning, and they can leave, it's one of those quick little little tidbits that I can learn. And then when I leave, I'm smarter than when I walked in, because all of our videos are 2 minutes or less. So you could share a quick video on how do I get my child to listen to me, or every behavior is a form of communication. And so check those research and answer videos out, the screen time ones. So check those out and see if any of those would lend themselves to starting a parent meeting or something like that. Yeah, I think, Penny, it'd be great where they could meet and start building that network, that parent to parent network. So, so that is what I wanted to kind of go back and review. I hope that there's something that you heard that you want to take forward, and think about or mull over. And with that, I will turn it over. Good. Turn it back over to Shauna.
So I do have a quick question, Penny and Tasha. Do you guys do, say, closed Facebook groups for your parents, or any kind of group, closed parent group?
I'm going to be turning mine into that, because I had opened up one and that was the concern, was it wasn't private. So I'm redoing it and making it to where it's a private group. And I have almost all new families. So that's why I'm kind of like, I'm starting fresh and starting over, which is kind of a good thing in some aspects, but
Yeah.
I
I was kind of going back to Penny's comment saying that they can't get together, and how COVID has been kind of keeping people apart. And if you had those closed groups, if you would have one parent a week be kind of the introduce yourself to the rest of our families type, and do the video and put it on your Facebook so the other families could meet that parent, that the dad, the mom, or the caregiver, whoever that happens to be, siblings, dog, whatever. And yes, it's not a face-to-face kind of introduction, but it is, oh, that's the person that picks up Derek every day. I didn't know who that was. I didn't know they had siblings or whatever. I think that's, again, technology, because if COVID is still keeping you apart, which makes me sad that that's maybe the case, try to utilize some other ideas and resources to bring families together in a different way, and as part of support for your program.
Right. And the last thing that I want to say, Tasha, especially to you, since you're just getting started, is, family engagement is a process. And so you have to really, take it in steps. And so as with each, and Penny, you too, every time you're reaching out to families or hosting or, offering something to your families, don't think that you have to meet all of those building blocks. I mean, ideally, that's where we want to get. But, if you are like, okay, I'm going to make sure first that all of them are linked to learning. And then once that's done, then tackle another one. Don't try to do all of it with all of your things, because otherwise you'll quit. And we can't have anybody else. We can't have anybody else quit. So, okay. All right.
That's it. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Teddy.
Thank y'all. Have a good
thank
weekend.
you.
Bye.